military spouse. My husband was a career Air Force officer. I know a lot about the military, and I feel like the military does have a role, certainly in our national security, absolutely. However, let me talk about this first. We first have to rely on diplomacy. Anybody in the military will tell you we first go with diplomacy, whether it be economic, whether it be social, whatever, but you always go with diplomacy first. Nobody wants to go to the battlefield as a first option. That is not the case. And so diplomacy, and so the bad thing here is, what did Trump do? Trump cut the State Department by 33%. That's just plain craziness. Even the generals in the Pentagon were telling him that that was just plain craziness. Now, so first diplomacy, but the military, that is required by the Constitution. That is a requirement. We need to use it wisely though. We need to help our allies. There is NATO. NATO does ask us to intervene. So those are those agreements that we have throughout the world in order to not only protect us, but protect other people as well. That is our responsibility. I do believe that the budget needs to look at, it needs to be cut, and what we need to focus in the budget is taking care of our soldiers, taking care of making sure that they have the training and the equipment that they need. That's it. That's our focus. It has to in terms of the budget. So Davis-Monthan has a role in this community. It has always had a role in the community. It will keep a role. I will protect it. If it's not one plane, it's another. If it's not the U-2, if it's not the F-4, if it's not the A-7, if it's not the A-10, it'll be another airplane. Fort Huachuca has a role. That's where cyber is. And how are we going to fight the Russians if we don't go back at them with the tools that they're using? So two very important installations in this district that I know a lot about and that I have a lot of experience with and that I can ask the right questions to make sure that your tax dollar is well spent. Thank you.
I really need to echo something Mary said. Diplomacy should be first and foremost. And we hear that from the generals. I believe it was General Mattis who, I don't know how recently, but who has said, if you aren't robustly funding the State Department, I'm going to need more ammunition. I'm going to need more bullets. And that is a very, very distressing thing to hear the generals say. But I agree with what he's saying. So, but in terms of Southern Arizona, we have, I would say, treasures in Davis-Monthan. I actually represented the Air Force Base for 4 years while I was serving Southern Arizona in our state legislature, so I am familiar with it. And, you know, 10,000 plus jobs, either directly or indirectly, are related to the base, and that's important. And we have an Army post, obviously, in Cochise County at Fort Huachuca that is extremely critical, given its role in potential for protecting us in the future. So, and this district is one that has always had a place on the Armed Services Committee. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, Gabby was on the Armed Services Committee, Ron Barber, Martha McSally, also on the Armed Services Committee. And I think that that's a tradition that we should continue so that we can protect those areas and have a voice at the table, right? So if we want to change something, it's important to have an advocate from Southern Arizona representing those institutions at the table where those decisions are being made. So it goes both ways.
The future of our security is cybersecurity, not boots on the ground. Fort Huachuca is an international cyber command center. The general out there has great experience with that, and that's a real treasure for us here in Arizona, as well as Davis-Monthan. I co-sponsored Ron Barber's legislation to save the A-10, and will continue to do that. I have flown to Afghanistan and the Middle East on Air Force trips and talked to the pilots, and they say the A-10 is the most versatile plane in their fleet, and they really believe that we should keep it. I first visited Afghanistan in 2009. I believed then, as I believe now, that we should not be there. I also believe that Congress must debate a new authorization for use of military force. We are working under the one that was passed right after 9/11. And the world has changed, and we need to have that debate. We were asking in the House for leadership to let us have that debate. We need the input of the American people if we are going to go into another war, whether it be Afghanistan, Iraq, or Syria, or where else. And it needs to be a conversation that you participate in. And I promise you, I will continue to fight that fight.
That's the conversation that we should be having. It's not just Donald Trump. It's not this election. Democrats have been pushing the military-industrial complex for years. That's what we should be really talking about. Where is that spending in terms of our budget? When we spend more than, and especially this budget, we increase military spending without increasing social services spending. That is not supposed to be offset that way. We're supposed to increase them at a total of the tune of the same amount. Those are things that we shouldn't be pushing. In terms of what Mary and Matt said, diplomacy is action. Diplomacy should be the first thing that we go to. And it didn't start in just Afghanistan and those wars, which are very personal to me, but it started back in Iraq, back in Syria, when we trained insurgencies, when we overthrew governments like Bruce said in South America, when we think we have a border crisis, and we know that we perpetuate our own problems by overthrowing governments in South America. Those are issues that we should be really talking about. But in the tune of Davis Montman, look, I'm an ambassador for the Arizona Technology Council. We promote technology in Southern Arizona. One of those companies is Raytheon. We push Raytheon and BE Aerospace and Lockheed and all these other companies to be here. So it's not just about the base. It's about Hachuka, it's about Luke, it's about the Goldwater Range. We have one of the largest concentrations of the armed forces for any other state. So when we look at our industrial complex in terms of BRAC, we have to be thoughtful, even as progressive Democrats, to know what the economy is around us, but also know what we can do in terms of that as well. We can hold the Raytheons accountable for not perpetuating nuclear war and arming some of their tipped missiles and doing the production down here in Tucson. We need to make sure that we don't increase military spending, but we put it in cybersecurity. Those are things that we actually should do because that's the battle of the future. It's not troops on the ground. It's a hacker in a basement, and that's state-sponsored, and we need to get them back.
Time for another lightning round. First, we're going to go down the line with a simple choice before we get into raising hands. If elected, will you join the Progressive Caucus or the Blue Dogs? And we'll start on the end with Billy.
Hey, which one? Key question.
Well, yes, make your choice.
Progressive.
Can't hear. No.
No? You won't join either?
I'm a New Dem. I joined the New Dem caucus.
All right. Bruce? Progressive, of course. All right.
Can't hear. I'm sorry, progressive?
Matt?
Yeah, also progressive.
All right. And now, raise your hand if you're answering yes. Should we legalize medical marijuana at the federal level? What about recreational marijuana? If you happen to not get the most votes, and that's likely to happen to one or two of you in this country, will you endorse the winner of the Democratic primary? Do you favor term limits in Congress? And Ann, you keep making me follow up. This is a bit of a change, perhaps?
No.
You know what I'm asking about here. You endorse term limits, a free term limit for members of the House.
I support a constitutional term limit amendment that everybody would have to follow. I signed that pledge in 2016, and I signed it again in 2018.
So you don't think it's going against what you were talking about before? You served 3 terms and you were talking about a 3-term term limit.
I was talking about signing the constitutional pledge limit.
So it would apply
Yeah.
to everybody, and
For
because it's
everybody.
not there, it's
That's right.
kind of irrelevant at this point?
That's right.
Okay. Just wanted to clear that up. So there are now a number of candidates on the Republican side in this race, but the front runner is a candidate who's built her public reputation on business issues. What type of economic development would you promote in CD2? And specifically, how would you tackle that? What would you do? It's kind of hard for a member of Congress to get down into making their district have a better economy, but maybe there's something you can work on. And what can Congress do to help the working class and the middle class? And so this is a complex issue, but I'm going to give you guys 1 minute apiece.
Oh, really? Okay. Look, it's when the economy's booming, your politicians, president, everyone likes to take credit for it, and then when it isn't, it's someone else's fault, right? So the economy is not necessarily tied directly to almost anything the president or any of us as an individual can do. So just temper your expectations. But one of the most important things I think we can do is continue to really showcase the amazing and unique things that Southern Arizona has to offer. And that is, and as an advocate for Southern Arizona, that's going to be part of my job, to work on enhancing and increasing tourism. That's one of the biggest industries. Yeah, you can clap that. And just making sure that that I am speaking out on behalf of the. So I mean, the weather. My gosh, one of the reasons we have some of the military installations that we have here is that you can be taking off and landing year-round and not worrying about de-icing, right? Probably one of the reasons a lot of you are here is because you don't have the de-ice. Right. Sorry, I'm up.
I believe in public-private partnerships as only one part of an element of a complex situation to improve our economy and join the 21st century in things like sustainable energy. We partnered with the University of Arizona and private enterprise to come up with an optics industry. And as a result of that, today the U of A is renowned over the world with its mirrors and satellites and in Chile and in Hawaii and all over. And that spun off with a lot of small businesses to support that industry. So I believe that there should be, when appropriate, a partnership between government and private to industry to come up with solutions through investments and research and development. The $500 million that was an issue last year at the universities. In Arizona, in the legislature, when I was there, we voted Democrats against the $528 million corporate income tax deduction for them. And I remember the chairman of Intel came and testified before the legislature, and he said, I don't need a $500 million tax cut. I need kids that are educated in tech that can get jobs at my factory in China or Arizona, building chips. So we ought to take advantage of what other countries are taking advantage of at our expense, like China, and develop sustainable energy sources like solar and all the others, instead of giving them those opportunities and that edge, and instead of giving subsidies to gas and petroleum and carbon industries, we ought to be giving it to sustainable energy.
I've been fighting for years to create good-paying 21st century jobs in Arizona. And there are 3 ways we do that. First of all, we have to build a world-class education system. I talk with companies who say, you know, they like Arizona, but they don't want to locate here because their employees don't want their children to go to our schools. The second thing we have to do is pass comprehensive immigration reform. The third thing we have to do is raise the minimum wage. Last year, Arizona voted to do that. But I will tell you, the front runner on the Republican side led the Koch brother-funded battle to fight raising the minimum wage. And that is just not right, and you need to know that. and she will continue to do that. She's not on our side. She's not on the side of working people in this state. She's not on the side of working people in CD2, and she will not be a good representative.
So, full transparency, I mentor for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Leah Marquez is the CEO of that chamber. I spend most of my weeks mentoring youth to start small businesses in Southern Arizona. I was the ambassador for U of A on science and technology, specifically to keep young kids within Southern Arizona. And that's what I think that we should advocate for. We need to advocate for keeping that brain drain away from our #1 university, but also pushing Pima Community College and vocational program training for the actual jobs that we're missing out on. I can put high-tech jobs every day like every other candidate, but what we're really missing, and we saw it in this last election, we missed a whole swatch of this country that was left behind. And that's vocational programs and vocational training. And we couple that with massive infrastructure spending and bringing back the CCC to take back our public lands from private interests and make sure that the economic development of the future is clean, renewable, sustained agriculture, mining, farming, and transportation.
Coming from the very far side of our district, I live, work, eat, go to the store with people that want one thing. They've come to me all the time. They want to earn a living. There's no way to earn a living in Southeast Arizona, Bisbee, Wilcox, Benson. They need a job. And they say to me, does nobody know this? Does nobody know we have nowhere to work? I am for one thing, and this is in my platform, we need training schools in America for plumbers, electricians, carpenters, HVAC, and agriculture, because agriculture, the people who work in the fields and on the tractors, it's all going electronic. So we need to make apprenticeship again in America, because entrepreneurs, trust me, will take us there. They always have, and they always will. This is going to be our future, folks, because we're on our way the other way from looking out here, a lot of us. So we need to think about, hey, I'm right there. I mean, I'm with y'all. So it worries me, it really does. Where is the work of tomorrow? Artificial intelligence, wake up, folks. China, by 2035, will squash us in artificial intelligence. They have set this as a goal. We have to be aware of where our future is going. We need to get the young people out to vote. It's their future. It's theirs. I will go to Washington. The vineyards of Wilcox, there's now 17. We can become out there the vineyards like they were in California. We can do this. And I want to address one last thing, and I know my time is up, but you didn't call on me on this.
You can have a couple of seconds, too.
Okay, thank you. So, Davis-Monthan, I absolutely 100% reject any growth at Davis-Monthan, and I'll tell you why. I did a study on this, and when you study the fine particles of military jets that are taking off in the Tucson airspace, it is destroying the lungs of people who live near those bases. And don't think it isn't. And they don't want any more growth. And I will tell you, coming from North Carolina, I had a house in Fort Bragg, and I will tell you this, there's not a whole lot of good stuff that goes on around military bases. They don't bring the kind of growth that we need. We need positive growth, and we need it to be entrepreneurial growth, because that will be our future in America. And trust me, Arizona, I would do everything I could to bring industry to this area. I was an account executive my whole entire life in the banking industry before I became a rancher. And I will tell you this, I can sell it.
I grew up in Tucson, and I know from having lived there from the time I was in elementary school, even younger, is that there's a lot of poverty in Tucson. 1/4 of the people that live in CD2 or in Tucson or in Cochise County, they're in poverty. And one of the reasons that they're in poverty is because there's just not good paying jobs. And we used to have good paying jobs back in the 70s, but for the last 40 years our salaries have stagnated, and you feel it here. You feel it here, that salaries have stagnated. You just cannot afford what you used to afford. And why have salaries stagnated? Because profits have stayed at the top 1%. That's why. Because profits have been disconnected from salaries. So we have unemployment of 4%, but they're not good jobs. They are not paying the rent. They are not buying cars. They are not allowing people to get skill training or college training or whatever it is. So we need to have salaries go up. We need to make sure that the federal government provides incentives to form that connection between profits and salaries. We need to get paid better in CD2. Now, one of the starting places that we can make that connection, where that federal government can make that connection, is in the next infrastructure projects that we have. I believe that we should spend $1 trillion on fixing our infrastructure. That money will come to CD2, and when it comes to CD2, we're going to demand good salaries, and we're going to demand good training, and it's going to definitely decrease the poverty rate here in this area. But we definitely have to look at salaries, training, and focus in investing in people. That is the most important thing we can do. Thank you.
The economic engine in Arizona is small businesses, and we haven't talked about that. I ran my own small business, and I started out being able to do my own taxes, but it got so complicated I couldn't. And I talk with young people all the time who would like to start their small business, but the banks won't loan to them. This is a real problem. So I really believe that we need to pass legislation that requires that the banks fund these young entrepreneurs who are going to drive the economic engine, and that we simplify the tax code for small businesses.
This great discussion here today is coming near to its end. I would like to have each of the candidates give a brief closing statement, reflect a little bit on what you've heard from each other today, and where you might be different. I think the folks who are here and who will be watching this on video later want to be able to pick from among you and need to know where you're different. So to talk a little bit about that and how you see this campaign proceeding.
Thank you. There we go. I look, not that we're so different, but that we're so similar. A lot of the things that we're pushing are some of the same things, but I could disagree with points that everybody had made. I do think Medicare for All is the pathway of the future, because we can support that structure by bringing out of taxes back from overseas from our corporations that have taken them from us. When I look at immigration, that immigration policy that we should be pushing is something that we can get to. And I don't think more enforcement at the border is something that we should have. I think education for this district is the pathway to the future for small businesses. And as a small business owner, I can advocate because I am that person. When we talk about tech or the environment or all those things, I think that I have that voice because I've been in that conversation way before I stood on this stage and asked you for your vote. That's why I think I should be up here. That's why I think I should be in this community for 2, 4, 6, term limits, 6, 8 years. But it's not about just myself, it's about us. I'm asking you not to just vote for me, but take a look at the candidates around you, the down ballot candidates, the ones that are running for state legislature and school board. That's where the change needs to be made. The federal government does not make all the decisions in our lives. We need to start pushing other state candidates. There's some in this room, too, that I completely support. Deidre Aboud's over there in the corner. There's things that we should be pushing in our economy that aren't just on the federal level. And we need to be real with ourselves about the capacity of the federal government and really talk about the issues of every single day. Because we can't fix everything, but we can advocate for those who want to fix that within our communities. Thank you.
Well, Dylan, first of all, I want to thank you for putting this together and all the people who worked so hard, our camera crew, all of you who showed up, took a time out of your Sunday afternoon to ask us tough questions and be part of this conversation. You know, it's great to have a primary. I enjoy all of these candidates and welcome a new candidate to the conversation. What unites all of us, as you can see, is that we want to take back CD2. That's the goal. So thank you again. The conversation doesn't end here today. It will continue. And I appreciate your energy and your desire to make genuine changes, not only in CD2, but for our state and for our country. Thank you.
So, in reflecting a bit, and just hearing of what everyone has had to say, it's really interesting to me, and I'm really also very inspired by this. But if you didn't notice, half of us are women. Right? Not exclusive, but like half of the group up here are women. I think that's great. A third of us are gay. That's a big deal, right? There's a lot of diversity here just sitting right in front of you, and this is a direction that the country needs to go in. So, you know, as we have this family discussion, we're all part of the Democratic family, we need to figure out, you know, who's the best. You need to figure out, this is very important, look at our records, don't just listen to what we say. Politicians can shift around a little bit here and there. I've watched this. But I've experienced this in the legislature, trust me. So look at our records, see what we've done on the issues that we talk about, and don't just listen to what we say. It's extremely important that you have absolute faith and trust in whichever one of us you're going to send to Washington, D.C. And I'm privileged to have taken care of veterans for 3 years when I worked in the VA hospital. One of the best experiences of my life through my training at the U of A, and I continue to see thousands of patients every year at the Tucson Medical Center from throughout the district, and I will take what I learn from them, what I hear from them, their hopes, their dreams, and I will be the absolute strongest advocate on your behalf as I possibly can be.
You know, I'm not a politician. I'm a rancher. I was a rancher. I retired. And I'll tell you what drove me here. This you have to know. The night of Charlottesville, when our president could not put the arms of America around us. And that's what I mean, the arms of America. We needed that. He couldn't find a way to do that. What have we become? You all must go home and you must ask yourself this question. Who are we? Who are the people we want to be? Where are the America and the Americans that we were? You need to get on your cell phones. You need to call your children. You need to call your friends. You need to have your children call their children. And all the way down to 18 years old and get them to the polls. Do you all know that 20% of people in Arizona only go out to a primary? Ladies and gentlemen, the world fought and fights for a vote. We take it for such granted in America. You have a voice. You can make a difference. Go to my booth. My friend Jeff is there. He's going to give you all my position papers. You don't need me to tell it to you. Know that in my heart, I will bring to the United States Congress the same grit, the same determination, the same Barbara Sherry I have ever been. I will fight, fight, fight for the right and for people who deserve better. We cannot live in chaos every day. We live in chaos. Can you have chaos in your home? Can you have chaos in your government? Can you have chaos at work? No, you cannot. And we live in a world of chaos with the president that we have now. I pledge to you on this day, if you feel and see me today and feel like I'm someone who will go there and fight the fight, I promise you I will never embarrass you ever. And I will give you all I have left because I love America. Thank you.
This election is not about how much money we've raised or who has endorsed us. It's about you, families across our land who demand a voice in Washington that represents our values. In this fierce urgency of now, as Martin Luther King referred to in his 1963 I Have a Dream speech, and at that time, the fierce moment of now, we are now again faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. That global warming is human and carbon caused, and where there is such a thing as being too late. That money, speeded up by Citizens United, is now playing a corrosive role in threatening our own very democracy. That's why my campaign has not relied on money with strings attached. I rely only on you. That public education is threatened with a cynical drive toward privatization, threatening the most basic opportunities to improve our lives. That healthcare remains beyond the reach of 27 million Americans and whose highest cost in the world causes untold pain and bankruptcies for thousands of families a year. That the new American oligarchy further enriches itself at the expense of everyone else, choosing to distract from real and unifying issues. We are witness to a tragically dysfunctional Congress where the leadership of both parties has failed us and where nothing gets done. Representative Mark Meadows of the Republican House Freedom Caucus is close to pulling off yet another coup against his own party's leadership, where his caucus of only 32 members, 7.5% of the House, is the tail wagging the dog, leveraging his small minority of extremists against the much larger majority. And painfully for my party, where our leadership fails to leverage its 193 members to meaningful action or messaging, thereby explaining the loss of both houses of Congress, the presidency, to a narcissistic con man, and the judiciary since 2010. As a side and a member of the House and the House Assistant Minority Leader and Whip, I was part of an effort to take the House of Representatives membership here in Arizona from 20 members to 25 between those same years. I believe I have the experience to bring your voice to Washington. I do hold a fierce determination to uphold our values and keep us united to achieve our common goals. Thank you.
Many of you have heard this before, but my parents came to southern Arizona as migrant farm workers. They picked cotton. But this country allowed me, the daughter of migrant farm workers, remembering how it was to pick cotton, remembering how it was to live in a house without inside plumbing. It allowed me to eventually become a political appointee. It allowed me to be a public servant and a civil servant, working for you for 34 years. Things that I did as the CFO of the Forest Service, I sent money to make sure that Coronado had enough money. Things that I did as I was assistant CFO of HUD is I sent money to the city of Tucson or Cochise County or Benson, whatever, make sure it had community block grants and that it had Section 8 money. That was our mission. As part of the military, I sent money to our soldiers to make sure they had the training and the equipment that they needed to be safe when they were called upon. I worked for you, and I want to continue working for you because your values mean something to me. Your values are my values. You believe in debt-free education. You believe in Medicare for all. You believe in helping our veterans. You believe in keeping our water and our air clean. You believe in making sure our environment and our beautiful desert survives this water shortages that we're suffering with now. I want to continue working for you. I have the experience to work for you. I've worked all my life to get to this point where I can serve you. And that's what I want to continue doing. So thank you for the opportunity. And I do hope that I get the trust that you want, that I am seen as trustworthy, and that you will in fact vote for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for being a part of this forum today. And of course, we really owe these candidates a lot of thanks for sharing their thoughts with all of us here today. And to each of you in the audience for taking some time on a beautiful, sunny Sunday afternoon to be a part of this. Please give them and yourselves a round of applause. And to wind things up, we've got a quick word from one of the groups that helped organize this forum.
Real quick before we leave, on behalf of the Alliance for Action, Santa Rita Democratic Club, Democratic Club of Quail Creek, I'd like to thank Don Smith for moderating the forum and all the candidates for participating. To the